So welcome to another video within the Digital Pros No Code Academy, and this particular video is all about creating a kind of favorites system for your FlutterFlow Supabase application. So for example, if you just wanted to provide the user an ability to kind of toggle a heart on to kind of mark something as a favorite, and of course toggle it off when they don't want it to be a favorite anymore, then this is the video for you. So this is one technique which you might want to consider for your particular project. So without further ado, let's get into the video and let's get cracking. Okay, so as always with inside the Academy, I'd like to demonstrate what we are building in this particular series of videos. So on screen at the moment is the iOS simulator. We've got local run all up and running with inside of FlutterFlow itself. This particular application is really simple. It's connected up to my Supabase project. I've got my authentication set up, but that's pretty well much it. It's a very, very vanilla kind of FlutterFlow project, but just a bit of theming and all that kind of stuff. Now, if I now just sign into this particular application, just going to hit the sign in, I'm now presented on screen with a series of different products, and there's 20 in this particular database here. You can see all different kind of names and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm signed in as this user. If I just now mark maybe 3 of these then as favorites, I'm just going to miss that one out there. So that's all now set. Now if I now sign out and I sign in as a different account, if I just hit the sign in, you can see that that user has no favorites set. So I'm just going to set the same one. I'm just going to set this one down here. So these are just 2 favorites. The first account, there was 3 of them. Now, if I now flick over to Supabase, let's see what that looks like in the table. So here you can see on the left-hand side, I've got a favorite products table. Really simple. It's got a user ID and I've got a product ID. And you can see here, I've got the 2 users here. So I've got these C26 and COD here. And you can see that there are 2 different users. The first user, we did 3, and the second user, we did 2. Now, if I go back to the actual application, let's take off that particular one there. Let's go back. We should see now that that single user here has only got 1 row in the actual table itself. So that's pretty well much what we're going to kind of build together in this particular series. I'm going to kind of remove all of these tables out inside Supabase, and we'll kind of recreate those together. So if you are kind of just finding your feet with FlutterFlow and Supabase, then this is a great video to kind of follow along in this particular series. And also, please remember, there's a link in the description as well to the FlutterFlow starter project. So it's well worth following along with that particular sort of sample project, because of course we're going to build upon that in this particular series. So without further ado, let's get into the next part of the video. Okay, so I've cleared all the tables in this particular project. Let's create the first one. Let's create a products table. Let's just type in products like that. Now, if I'm going to take off row level security just for the time being here. Now, I'm just going to create some columns. I'm going to create one here called title, and this is going to be a text like that. Let's create a new one. Let's put this as description like that. Description, and then just do that as a text as well. And let's add another column in here. Let's just do price. And I'm just going to set this one then to be a just numeric here. That's fine. Let's just take that off here. We want it to always have a value. We don't want it to be nullable. Let's give it a value of default value of 0.00. That's fine. Everything else is absolutely fine. Now, if I just save that. Okay, so that table has now been created. We'll put some products in there very shortly. Let's create a brand new table here. Let's go to new table, and I'm just going to do this one as favorite products. Oh, like that. Just give it a different name. Favorite products. Take off the row level security. Just hit confirm. Now let's add in our column. So this is going to be a user ID. Now the type of that's going to be a UUID like that, so it matches the type. If you are kind of using sort of having row level security set up here, we're going to want to associate a user ID with this. So set it as a UUID, and the kind of the data types will match. So that's important. So let's just delete this gen random out there. We don't need any of that. Let's take the nullable off, because we know we're always going to be passing a value in here. And let's just give then this a new column. So we're going to call this one product ID like that. And of course, this is just going to be an intake here. Again, that just matches the same data type as the products table itself. Let's just take the nullable off as well. So that is all set up. We can now set up our kind of relationship between the 2 tables. So go to add foreign key up here. Now select the table here. We're going to choose products. Now we're going to we've got here the public.favorite products. We're going to choose the product ID here, because we're going to link the product ID with the actual ID of the product itself like that. And that's all that we need to do. But there is one little step actually just we need to do down here. And we're going to say action if the reference row is removed. So if we delete the product, then we're going to cascade the deletes down, remove all of the favorites out for that particular product. So just go down here where it says action, and we're just going to go to cascade like that. So just bear that one in mind. You delete a product, you're going to delete all the favorites out as well. So hit the save option there. That should all be set up for us. Hit save again, and we should have all of our tables nicely created. So let's quickly just populate this with some sample data here. So what I like to do here is I like to kind of get the definition here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to use our good old friend ChatGPT to generate us some sample products. So let's go and move over to ChatGPT and do that now. Okay, so what I've done here is I said I have the following table and I need 20 sample products, which include a title, description, and a price. You can see here that I've just pasted in the table structure here, so ChatGPT knows. Hit the send here. Let's see what it generates for us. So hopefully this should just kind of give us on screen pretty well much a good indication of what it's going to create for us. That looks pretty good. So I'm just going to quickly stop this here, and I'm just going to say, please can I have a CSV? Hit the send here, and that will go away and it will generate me a CSV, which I can kind of lift and then paste that within inside a Supabase as well. So it's a great little technique if you are kind of building up your application and you kind of want some sample data, then use the kind of the table definition within inside a Supabase here to kind of give ChatGPT everything that it needs to know in terms of creating your sample data and all of that good stuff. So I'm just going to leave that to just generate its CSV, and in fact here it comes now. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. Okay, so here it's loaded up in trusty numbers here. You can see pretty well much that's what we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of take that into a text editor. I'm just going to copy all of that content and I'll be able to paste that into Supabase. So let's go and do that now. Okay, so here we are back in Supabase. Go to the data option down here. Go to insert. Let's go to import data from CSV. I can go to paste text, and I'm just going to paste everything in there. You can see here I've got a preview here, so it looks like everything is matching up for me in the CSV. Let's import the data. Now all of those products are now created. So that's a quick run through on the Supabase side. We've got our tables all now set up. We've got some data in there as well. So we can now move over to FlutterFlow and we can start the key bit, and that's start implementing the actual functionality itself. Okay, so back in FlutterFlow, then the link is in the description, as I said before, for this particular starter project. Let's have a little quick run through and see what we got here. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that we're going to kind of got our Supabase project set up. So just move the little cog here, move down to the integrations option, Supabase, just paste your API URL in there, and of course your anonymous key. You get the schema, and this is the schema of the two tables that we have just created. So once that's all set up, we then can move over to the authentication, and we can make sure that we got the enable authentication set, and just make sure you kind of got your pages set up in terms of where the user will go to if they are not logged in. So that's the simple Supabase setup, and then within inside the project itself, really quite straightforward here. We got the authentication pages here that you saw at the beginning when we signed in. The home page is the only place that we are going to be working in this particular sort of project here, and we'll kind of build out kind of all of the the integration that's going to happen with inside these widgets. But really what you're seeing on screen at the moment are just sort of straightforward styled widgets. You can see here I've got like the scrollable column here. It's going to kind of be the primary scrollable column in this particular sample. And then we've got the page column itself. And that's what we're going to kind of do the back-end query on to bring down all of our products itself. And of course, inside this, I've got a container here, which is really just representing the kind of almost like a bit of a card, really. You've got the title, you've got the description, you've got the price here. And of course, we've kind of got these two kind of icons here, which have kind of got different ones here. For the favorite icon, it's just a colored in icon. And then this one here is almost like an inverse of that. So we're going to put some conditional visibility on this very, very shortly. We're going to use a very, very small custom function that's going to kind of help us out there as a little shortcut to creating lots of kind of conditional flows within inside the action flow editor. We can kind of almost do that in one little custom function. So that's about the only bit of coding that we're going to kind of do in this particular example, but honestly it's really, really not complicated whatsoever. So that's pretty well much it. The sign out will just allow us to just kind of sign out and sign in as a different user, obviously. So that's our starting point. Let's move into the next bit and let's start now working on the kind of the changes to use the kind of Supabase kind of the back end and start integrating some of this functionality. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do in this project is set up our database query and retrieve all of the products from our database. Now what we've got here, as I said earlier, we've got the product container here. Now that's going to contain all of the details about the actual product, but it's going to be the one just above it that we're going to kind of set the database query against. So I'm just going to move up here to then the add query. We're going to click on the back end query option, choose add query, go to query type, choose a Supabase query. We're going to set our table, which is just going to be the products themselves, and I'm just going to bring back all of the rows in this particular database table. And of course, you might want to put some filtering and some ordering on in your own use case, but we're going to keep it simple in this particular project. Just hit confirm. We've got this little create backend query pop-up that comes up. Just hit confirm, and you can see now this is kind of represented by these kind of ghosted kind of sort of widgets within inside this particular section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the actual product container itself. Just open that up here. Now you can see here that we've got the title text, we've got the description text and the price text. Let's quickly set those up here. So just choose a title text, move up to the text option here, go to the product row, and we're going to choose the title from our database row itself. And here we're just going to choose the title. Now the UI builder value, I'm just going to simply say title here. Now this again is just a visual thing within inside FlutterFlow, but it means whatever I put in here is going to show it here. So it's a good to be descriptive, and it's a good reference point within inside the UI to do that. Default variable, this is going to be a string, so we just need to put a little space in there, hit confirm. Just going to do the same thing for the description. Just select that up here, go to product row, move to description. Let's put a space in the default value, and I'm just going to type in here description like that, hit confirm. And here we've got the price as well. Let's just quickly do that. Select that, go to products row. Here I'm going to choose the price option here. Now I can do a bit of customization here. I'm going to say it's going to be a number format. I'm going to just go down here and I'm going to choose this in fact I'm going to choose the formatting here to be decimal, just like that. The decimal type here is going to be we're going to do a period for decimal, and we're going to display as a currency, and I'm just going to put in here just a dollar symbol here. It's no problem at all. The UI builder, I'm just going to type in price here and just hit confirm. That is all good. Now if I now were to fire this up, we should see all of the products get listed. So I'm just going to quickly fire this up into the local run mode, and let's see what it looks like in the simulator. Okay, so remember, if you had set up this particular project to follow along in this particular series, just make sure you register for your account within inside your Supabase project if you don't already have an account as it is. So let's just sign in, hit the sign in button there, and we should see there all of our kind of products get listed. So that's fine, that's good, that's just how we want it. We now can move on to the next bit where we can start now thinking about how we're going to kind of handle the kind of the favoriting within inside this particular application. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is create a page state variable that's going to keep a hold of a list of our favorites within inside our application. And we're going to be needing to use this very, very shortly in terms of determining whether something is actually in that list itself. So let's create the page state variable first. So with the home page selected, let's just move up here. We've got the home page selected there. Move over to this little option here and add a field. Now I'm just going to call this one favorites like that, and the type is now going to be a Supabase row, and it's going to be a list, and the table name is going to be favorite products like that, and just hit confirm. So we now have our page state variable set, which is great. Let's now set up the database query, which is really straightforward, where we're going to kind of query into our database. We're going to return back all of the favorites when this particular page loads. So let's quickly do that now. With the home page selected, move over then to the action, open up the action flow editor, and of course ignore the first one because that's really just handling the dark mode settings in this particular sort of application. But what we need to do is we now need to do that back-end query. So just hit plus here, hit add action. Let's go to then the Supabase options here. We can do query rows like that. So just choose query rows. The table name is going to be the favorite products. Now we're going to need to apply some filters here because of course we only want to return back the favorite products of our particular user who were actually signed into our application. So FlutterFlow makes it quite convenient to kind of grab hold of the user ID, so we can add that as a filter. So press add filter, go to the field name. Now we're going to choose the user ID here. We're going to go to relation. We're going to say is equal to, and then the value. Okay, where do we get that user ID from? Well, the great thing about FlutterFlow is we've got this authenticated user option here, and we just select that, and we've got the user ID available to us. So we've now got that kind of filter set. Now I'm going to want to return back an output variable here as well. So I'm just going to type in, this is going to be really important because we're going to kind of get that result set back from Supabase. We've now got that as a variable, and we're going to now want to then kind of set the page state. We're going to set our favorites list that we created just a moment ago from that action output variable. So let's just type in user favorite result like that. So just hit enter there, that's all good. And then what we can now do is we can hit the plus, go to add action, and now this is where we're now going to set that state. So we're going to just choose state there, choose update page state, set the fields, and this is our favorites list here. Just select that, and of course we're going to select update type, and we're just going to set the value itself, and the value to set of course will be that result that's come back. So we've got these this kind of action output, so just select that, and you can see I've got this user favorite list, which is list of row favorites, which is kind of what we need here. So just select that, hit confirm, and we're now going to persist that with inside a variable with inside our application. So that's great. So our application loads up. We're now going to pull down all of the favorites of the user that's currently got selected at the moment, and then we're going to use that very, very shortly to work out whether something is a favorite or not. We'll come and do that very shortly. Let's now move on to the next bit. Okay, so let's tackle the next bit, which is again quite straightforward to do. So what we're going to do, we're going to handle the situation of somebody who's got like an inverse heart, so there's no favorite currently persisted with inside our database. We're going to set up the fact that the user is going to click on that, and then we're going to insert that brand new record into our database. This is the most simple part. So let's, with that favorite icon there selected, move over to the actions, open up the action flow editor, hit add action, and I'm just going to look for then the insert here. So just do a Supabase insert row, just select that. Now the table is going to be the favorite products, just choose that, set the fields. So we're not going to worry about the ID, of course, but what we're going to do is select this one here, choose the field, and we're going to do the user ID first. So then of course we're going to want to do what we did previously, choose authenticated user, grab hold of the user ID. So we're now setting that. Let's add another field here. Let's just select the ID, and of course this is going to be the product ID itself. Now, okay, where do we get that product ID from? Well, because we're kind of in that row, we've got that available to us with the variable that we've kind of had created for us as per the setup of the backend query. So if I just choose the value here, you can see I've got this products row. So I could just select that. We've got a reference to it, and we're just going to grab hold of the ID itself. So that is the product ID, and we're just associating that there. So that's good. Now we need to choose an action output variable name. So the key thing about Supabase inside FlutterFlow is that when you insert a brand new record into your Supabase database, this is going to allow you to kind of create a variable with the result that comes back. So we're going to get that newly created record that comes back. Now, of course, that's going to have a brand new ID, right? Because it's just been created. So we're going to want to use that very, very shortly. So let's create an action output variable name here. Okay, so new favorite product result is the name of it. That's great. Now, of course, what we're now going to do with that result, well, we're going to add it to our favorites list that we've got. So now we've got it, we can now set it as a favorite. So hit the plus here, add action. Let's just type in state here as well. Update the page state, choose set fields. We're going to choose our list, our rows that we got there. Choose a select update type, and we're going to add it to the actual list itself. So choose add list, the value to add. Well, once again, because we've got that variable coming back, the action output, we can select it here. Action outputs, just move down here, and you can see I've got this new favorite product result. That's our new record that's just been created. Just hit confirm. That is all going to be then associated, and of course the new ID is going to be in there as well, and we're going to be able to use that very, very shortly. But that's it. That's all that we need to do. So if I just close that now, so what will happen now if we run up this application, we should be able to just hit that little option there, and you should see that record get created inside our database. So let's quickly hop over to then the local run. Let's do a refresh. Let's quickly try that out. Excuse the interruption in your learning, but I just wanted to reach out to you to let you know about the Digital Pros No Code Academy. This particular private community is fantastic. It's got all of my training content there, lots of written articles, question and answers, a code library, lots of topics around the no code space, and a fantastic community. Please do check the link in the description. It'd be great to have you part of the community. Okay, just done a refresh of the application. Let's hit the heart. Now we're not going to see any kind of visual feedback here, but if I have just clicked on it, let's go back into our table, and you can see here, in fact, I've double clicked on it and got 2 rows, which is really not what we want to do. So let me just quickly go and just delete number 2 out of there. Let's delete that row. That's a good start by double clicking, which is not what you want to do. So there we go. We've got no protection there, of course, if somebody is kind of double clicking. And of course, we can resolve that by changing the state of that heart then into then the selected one. But we'll come back and do that very, very shortly. So there we go. So there is the product saved. So we can see that the user ID is there. We've got the product ID associated. Let's just go back here. Let's just go back to the application. Let's just choose one more in this list as well. Let's choose this one here. Just select that there. Now, I only did click that once this time. And you can see here the product ID number 4 is then stored against the user ID. Brilliant. So let's now move on to the next bit. Okay, so next up, we're going to work on the red heart here. Now, this is going to be under the scenario that somebody has actually selected that as a favorite. And of course, we're going to want to remove it. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, what we're going to do is we are going to use a loop within inside of FlutterFlow. We're going to kind of work through that favorites list that we got within our page state. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of determine the position of which one that we're looking to remove itself. And once we've determined that position, we're then going to remove it from that particular favorites list. And of course, once we've got that, of course, we can then remove it from the database itself. So this is really just kind of saving us like making additional sort of database calls. We can kind of let the client side part of the application kind of work in that particular way where we don't need to keep doing refreshes of our database. We can kind of just do a simple kind of removal from the favorites list. The UI will be updated automatically to reflect that. And of course, if I was to close down the app and go back in, then everything will be refreshed from the database side itself. So with that out of the way, let's now work a little bit on the details. So what we need to create another page state variable called count. Now, this is something that if you watch one of my previous videos on loops within inside FlutterFlow, please do go and check the channel for that. I do something very, very similar where I'm just really tracking the kind of the position that I am within inside the loop itself. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to go through my loop like that. I'm going to keep looping over these items. I'm going to increment this count one by one until we find the product ID that we're interested in. Now that count variable is what's tracking where I am within inside that particular loop. And then I can use that value to then remove the item, the actual position of the item from that favorites list as well. And hopefully, maybe when I show you this, if you've not been doing this stuff before, then that should become a little bit more familiar to you. So first thing to do is let's create that page state variable. So let's go and make sure you've got the home page selected here, move over here to then the page state variable. And you can see here, I've got one here called count already. Now this one I've already created in this particular project. See, I've got count here, it's an integer. It's got a default value of 0. And of course, I've taken the nullable off there as well. So that's all set for me. You just need to create the same thing yourself. Now, once that's in place, we can then start focusing on the actions within inside this particular bit. So let's now move over to the action flow editor. Let's open up that up and let's start now working on this particular functionality. Okay, so now we're going to add a loop. If you want more information on loops, then please do check out the other video on my channel or within inside the Academy that talks about loops and goes a little bit more into detail and lots of different examples there as well. So just for this particular video, let's now add a loop in as well. And what I'll do is I'll talk to you a little bit about how it kind of works, and hopefully that should all make particular sense. So the loop is there. We need to set a condition first within our loop. So we're going to want to keep looping around until our condition is met. So let's create the condition first and I'll explain a little bit more. So go to conditions here, choose a single condition. The first value is just going to be our page state variable, which is going to be our count. So just hit confirm with there. And we're going to say our count is less than the number of items within inside our favorites list. So we just need to go to the second value, choose the value here, go to then the page state variable, just go to then the favorites list, and the available option is going to be a number of items, and just hit confirm like that. Just hit confirm. So there we go. So we got the counter here is less than the number of items. Now, just very briefly, our starting position for our count is going to be 0. Now, of course, if you are into programming or you know a little bit about programming, you would kind of know that we're in programming context is that an array within inside, or certainly in our list here, everything starts at 0. Okay, so 0 index base. So the first item would be 0. But of course, the number of list items will always be one more than that, because it doesn't start from 0 when we say the number of items. It will always be some, let's say 3, for example, got 3 items in our list. And our count is 0. We're looking here to match that condition. We'll keep looping round until our condition is met, where we're saying the number of list items is less than the count, not equal to, it's less than. So if our number of items are 3 and we need that condition to meet, then we know that the count would need to be then be 2 because we start from 0. So 3 against 3. So that's in very simple terms there, but do go and check out that other video. It should give you a little bit more information. So we're inside our loop now. What do we now need to do with inside our actual loop? So the first thing that we're going to do is remove this one out here. We're just going to delete that particular action, hit the plus, because we're now going to do this conditional check. So just choose add a conditional like that. So now we can just do this conditional check where what we're trying to do is we're trying to match up the kind of the ID of the actual row itself with the index position within inside our favorites list. So the count is going to act as an effective way for us to pull out the record from the actual favorites list itself. So let's go to our conditions here. Just choose a single condition. And the first value is going to be, so let's just select this here. Now this is going to be the product row. So we're going to sort of grab hold of the ID here, the product ID. So get row field ID, that's perfect. Just hit confirm. And what we're doing is we're going to go through this loop and we're going to quickly to see if we can actually find that favorite within inside the actual list itself. So we can say it's equal to, just choose the second value, just choose value here. And we're going to go into then the page state. We're going to go to our favorites list here. The available options are going to be then the item at index like that. Now the list index option is going to be a specific index. Now this index is going to be tracked by that count, that value that we set. We know it's going to be 0 to start off with. So just choose the value here, go into the page state here, and then it's the count like that. And then once we've got that, let's just say that condition is then met. What are we actually checking against here? Well, it's going to be the product ID itself. So just choose a product ID, and then that's pretty well much going to be saying, if I just hit confirm there, we're saying if the ID of the actual row itself matches the product ID within that position within inside our list. If the two match up, then we're going to move into this more positive true direction here. So we know that it's in the list. Of course, if it's not in the list, we're going to end up in this particular direction here. And of course, we're going to be incrementing that count by 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, the loop's going to go around again, and it's going to try and find it within inside the favorites list itself. So just hit confirm there like that. So let's now work on the positive. So this is if that condition is met. If we found that within inside our favorites list, we're going to move in this direction to hit the plus here. Now, what are we going to do? Let's add an action here. Let's just type the state in like that, update page state. And what we need to do is we need to kind of remove it from our favorites list. So just choose favorites list here, select update type. We're going to say remove from list at the index. Okay, so that's going to be, we're going to use the count variable there to remove from the position. So just choose remove list at index. The index to remove, well, we just need to go to our page state variable, and of course we just need to choose count like that. So that's now going to remove it from our list, but that's only one part of it. Of course, we want to remove it from our database as well. Well, we just follow that up afterwards with then another database call here. So hit plus, go to add action. Let's just do a type in delete here, and we got the delete rows. So just choose a delete row like that, go to table, and we're going to go to our favorite products because that's the table that we're going to do. And of course, we need to match these particular rows. So just go matching rows itself, add the filter. Well, what we're going to do is we now need to we need to remove the actual product ID itself. So just with a product ID selected there, relationship is equal to, we just need to choose value. We're going to go to products row, and we're just going to select the ID like that. But of course, we're not just done there though. We need to also make sure that we're not deleting other people's sort of favorites as well, because we need to make sure we pass in the user ID as well. So we can just narrow that down to only deleting the product for that particular user. So just go to add filter, choose the field name. We're going to choose user ID, relationship is equal to, and just as we did before with the value, just choose authenticated user and then the user ID itself. So that's it. We don't need to put any action output here. We just need to do one more thing here, and we need to reset that counter back to 0. So just go to plus here, add action, go to the state option here, update page state, go to set fields, go to count, and all we need to do here is then just reset the value. And of course, we set the default value as 0, so of course you're just going to reset that back to 0. So that is the positive direction. Let's just then handle the actual negative direction itself. This is really quite straightforward. We just need to hit the plus here, add the action, and all we need to do here is just increment that counter by 1 every single time, because we haven't matched the condition, so we're going to end up just incrementing again, and then of course we're going to do that check again and again and again. So just go to update page state here, set the fields, we can go to count, and we go to select update type, and we're going to increment decrement, and we've got automatically filled with 1 there. And of course if we're decrementing, then we would put a minus there, but we're not. We're just going to put the 1 in there, and that's all that we're going to do. So one final thing that we just need to do here is on the plus here, we've kind of hit the loop. We don't need to keep looping around anymore, so we can actually break the loop. So we just hit the plus, and we can do a loop break. Quite simple. That's all that we need to do. So then it keeps our application nice responsive. Of course, if we had 2, 3, 400, although it would do this very, very quickly, of course, on a loop, we just want to break the loop at that particular point because we found what we're interested in, and that is all that we need to do. So that is all set up for us. If I just hit close now, let's now move on to the next bit. Okay, so we're nearly coming to the end, would you believe? We can be able to run this up very, very shortly, but there's one extra bit that we now need to do, and of course that is the conditional visibility on those hearts. Of course, we've got the red heart, we've got the inverse heart itself. We're going to want to kind of display one or the other, depending on whether we've got that favorite within inside our list. So how do we do that? Well, we could create some sort of more complex kind of actions within inside the action flow action flow editor under the conditional visibility, but that's going to take quite some time. It's quite time consuming to do that with inside the action flow editor, but we could get rid of all of that complexity, and we can create a really, really simple custom function to handle all of that for us. So let's quickly do that now. Let's create that custom function together, and I'll kind of walk you through exactly what it's up to. Then I'll show you how to hook that in to then the conditional visibility. So on the left hand side, we've got the option here called custom code. Let's create a custom function. So just go to add here, go to function, and let's give our function a name. So is favorite in list is what I've called it. Now the return type here is just going to be a boolean. Is it in there true? If it's not, it's just going to be false. So we're just going to take off the nullable here. We're going to define some arguments. We're going to want to pass some details in here. So the first thing that we're going to do is add in the product ID. So we're going to pass in the ID of the product. Now that's going to be of type integer like that. It's not going to be nullable. We're always going to pass it in. Let's add another argument in. Now this is going to be the kind of the favorites list itself. So I'm just going to type in here favorites. The type is going to be then a Supabase row like that. I'm going to take off the nullable. It's going to be a list, and the table name is going to be then our favorite products. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste a little bit of code in here for you that I got in my clipboard, and I'll just talk you through what it's doing. So what we've got here, we've got a little bit of programming code here, which is really just going to kind of loop around all of our favorites like that. So you can see here we're passing in favorites. Here is a favorite. We're just creating a variable here. We're going to loop around all of the favorites, and what we're then going to do is we're then going to kind of do the equivalent to a conditional check with inside there. So we're going to say, is the favorite the product ID? Is it equal to the product ID that I'm passing in? If we know that we've got a match there and it finds it, then we can return true. Otherwise, we're just going to return false. And of course, this is going to keep looping around until, of course, we get to the end. And of course, we don't find anything. It's just going to return false like that. So this is just a bit of code here. It's a bit of a shortcut here to providing a little bit of sort of more lean sort of FlutterFlowing, if that's the way I'll describe it, in terms of then being able to hook onto this this custom function with inside the conditional visibility check. So if I just hit the save function up here, let's just hit the compile. This should all work out quite nicely for us. It should compile quite quickly. There it goes, got the little check. That is all good. And we can now use that custom function with inside our application. So let me show you how to do that. Let's move back over to the widget tree. Let's now first select this particular heart here. So what we need to do is we need to move over to this option up here. So just going to toggle conditional visibility on. Let's select that now. Let's now just go down to the custom function here. So I can choose custom functions, and I'm going to say, is my favorite in the list? So just choose is favorite in list. And now I'm going to choose the product ID. Now this is going to be of this particular row. So just choose the value here, go to the products row, and here is the ID like that. And now I'm going to pass in our list of favorites, which is from the page state variable. So just select that, go to the page state here, and we've got the favorites list row like that, and just hit confirm like that. So you can now see that what we're going to now do is we're now going to check to see if the product ID is in the favorites list. Now, if that returned true, then we're going to want to make sure that our heart is red. Well, what we need to do here is, because we want to maintain this to be an inverse, we want this actually to be false. We don't want this to come back with a result. So I'm just going to apply the opposite statement like that and just hit confirm. So you can see I've got is favorites in list like that. If I select that now, I'm just going to copy this particular variable, go to this particular heart here, go to up to the options, the properties here, go to conditional, and I'm just going to select this. I'm going to paste this one in, but it's not going to be the opposite. So if this returns back true, then I know that it's in my favorites list, and of course that heart is then going to be displayed. Otherwise, of course, because it's the opposite, the heart is not going to get displayed like that. Just hit confirm and we should be good to go. So let's now fire this up in test mode. I may have made a mistake along the way. We might need to correct something, but let's fire this up and let's see how it works. Okay, so here we are then running with the application. I've cleared out all of the favorites I've got in my database. I've got no favorites in there at all. I can now just sort of just do what I was doing before, I guess, at the start of the video. Let's just try clicking a few. You can see now my heart has gone red, which is great. So I've got 3 favorites selected there. Let's now head over to Supabase. You can see I've got my 3 there. That seems like it's working really, really well. If I just try deleting maybe 2 of these out, I've just got the 1 at the top. Let's go and have a look. That should be updated. Excellent. That's all looking like it's working perfectly for us. So that is quite a simple Supabase implementation. Again, there's many different ways that you can sort of do this with inside of FlutterFlow and with inside the database. This is just one particular technique which is worth considering. Of course, it's more geared up not to have like, hundreds and hundreds of favorites with inside the database, because we're kind of doing that initial query. So just bear that one in mind as well, depending on your sort of project that you're kind of building. One other option that you might want to consider is to create an app state variable where you're just storing the favorites on the user's device. So this would be a persisted app state variable that you could just store a series of IDs in, and of course you could be doing a lookup into that particular list instead of actually via the database. So that might work out for you as well. That should be super fast if you're trying to if you're looking to store more favorites for a particular user. One slight downside to that, of course, is it means that when you delete those products, in this particular case from the Supabase database, then of course those IDs won't get removed from a persisted app state variable. But of course you could provide an option to the user where they could kind of clear down their favorites if they wanted to as a settings in the application or something like that. Or you could introduce some kind of feature into your application that kind of periodically will clear those favorites down. If you're storing like maybe a date and time against those particular favorites, you could clear them down if they're really old or something like that. But you get the idea. There's different ways of implementing it. So yeah, so hopefully you found that useful. Please do check out the Academy for more kind of walkthroughs like this. Please, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, please continue to subscribe to the channel. There's so much content on there with FlutterFlow, and of course, lots of little techniques like this that I'm obviously always introducing all the time as well. So please do check out the Digital Pros No Code Academy if you really like this and you like the community spirit, and you want to learn from other like-minded sort of FlutterFlow sort of no code project builders, and please come and join the community. It'd be great to see you there. So until the next video, I'll see you soon.